All right, so under my business, I'm going to pass out a letter that I received from Sheriff Gugliani. I think I'm saying that correctly. So if you'll please take one of those. And sometimes when you're serving at your pleasure as school board chairperson, you receive correspondence. And sometimes when I receive that correspondence, I want to make sure that you get it too. And as you'll see in this particular letter from Sheriff Gugliani, you know, I think all the board members that are here today attended the presentation that he conducted at Northwest Florida State College. I think it ran about, well, I guess about 4 hours.
Longer than
In which the sheriff, who was appointed as the chairman of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Commission, presented his findings. And I know that because I saw your faces, that when the video of that school tragedy was shown, I know that you reacted the same way that I did. But in any case, as you read through the good sheriff's letter that he sent to me, that I've now given to all of you, the sheriff makes some very strong recommendations. And the most important recommendation in this letter, and I've underlined it, please forgive my scratching there, but I've underlined for you, the sheriff recommends that the school district implement the school guardian program. And this is something that he has put in writing to me. And we went to that presentation. And I would just say this, I don't yet know what the superintendent will recommend. And I'm certainly not asking any of you to reveal what your vote or what your thoughts about that might be at this time. But I wanted to make sure that you receive the same correspondence that I received, that it is his strongest recommendation that this school district, and for that matter, all school districts in Florida, implement the school guardian program. Now, before the emails fly and the press prints, let me say, the guardian program is spelled out in great specifics in Florida statute. It is not something that we're just going to be having folks carrying firearms in schools. The requirements for the guardian program are extensive. In fact, the sheriff said in his presentation, and you might remember this, that the requirements for individuals that might volunteer to do this and that might even be selected, provided that they pass the battery of tests that would be required and provided that they pass the qualifying credentials. But in fact, these individuals would have the same level of certification as would a rookie policeman or sheriff's deputy. That was a comment that Sheriff Gugliani made. And so I want to make it very clear that this is a very, very high level possibility should the superintendent and this school board choose to do this. And in addition to that, these would be individuals that not only would have that level of qualification and certification, they would have degrees, even awarded at the highest levels. And so I wanted just to make sure that all you board members got the same letter that I got, in which the good sheriff makes this recommendation to this school board. All right, and so that's really all I've got to say about this matter at this time.
Could I just
Sure.
add that it might be important that each of us has a conversation with our own sheriff for his input. I have done that, so you may want to do that.
He did make a very compelling argument.
In my opinion, there's
And
no
it'll be
question.
interesting to talk to our sheriff and see what he says.
And I appreciate you saying that, Mr. Destin, because I would share with the board members and the public that there are portions of his presentation freely available on YouTube and Vimeo. And there wasn't anything quite more moving than seeing the teacher trying to defend himself and his students with a ruler.
Yardstick, yeah, that's very eye-opening.
There's another one you might be interested in hearing on YouTube as well. It's from Mr. D, who was the principal at Columbine. And he talks about not just the incident, but the ongoing things that the community and the school are still dealing with. Details such as not serving the same meal that was served that day that students were eating that you wouldn't even anticipate. So that also is very enlightening to listen to. I think he has a new book out as well,
All right.
Mr. D.
And what I'd like to point out for the public is the opening paragraph, the last sentence that the sheriff wrote. He says, "I'm writing on behalf of the commission to encourage you and your school district to fully implement the Guardian program and maximize school safety in your district." I don't know that he could have said it any more powerfully. All right, anything else?
And I would like to add, as we go forward into 2019-20, school student safety will continue to be the #1 priority. And I think, as we all know here, student safety is different maybe than what it was a number of years ago. So student safety is also the mental health component of it. So we're working hard on that. Student safety is infrastructure. We're working hard on that, and student safety is also part of this Guardian program. So over the course of the last 12 weeks, I've learned a lot more about student safety. What I would like to request, I would like to request a special board meeting to conduct in a closed session to discuss school safety and security. I think, as you know, when it comes to safety and security, we can't share with the public our plans for security reasons. So I very much would like to have that scheduled at your leisure. I think it's important to share, what we've done to date, where we're going, and have those appropriate discussions. So I would request a special board meeting that would be a closed session.
So, Mr. Attorney, how is it that we go about, first of all, give us the law on that, and then, and second of all, how do we go about doing that should the board wish to do that?
You do have the ability to, we would convene as a special board meeting, and then we would go into a closed session for the portion of the meeting in which the details of safety and security plans and programs and proposals are being discussed. That information is not subject to the public record law. It is confidential, obviously, because of the need to protect those security plans and systems. And so what we simply need to do, if the board is willing to conduct this meeting, would be to have Jan or Mary work with your schedules to find a date when it can be scheduled, and we'll do an appropriate public notice of the meeting and identifying that there will be a portion of that meeting that will be closed under Florida law.
All right, I see. Any questions or comments, board members? You want to move forward with that?
I do.
Yeah, I think we have a consensus on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
All right, very good. Would you work that out with Jan and Mary, Mr. McInnes, and superintendent, and then also the press releases and all those kind of things we have to do? Sure. Okay. All right. All right.
And Dr. White, one
Yes, sir.
last piece.
Yes, sir.
And this past week, we had a meeting. Myself and staff had a meeting with the sheriff on Tuesday. I believe it was Tuesday. Also to discuss the Guardian program as well, and to get his thoughts on the Guardian program. The sheriff is very willing to come to a board meeting and discuss his thoughts. So I think it's obviously extremely important that we have that strong partnership with the sheriff, and we had an excellent meeting discussing this matter.
So I believe we should invite him to that meeting, correct? Can we do that? Even though it's closed when he could come if we want him? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I think we need to get with his schedule and see what we can do I think his input is essential in making a decision.
And Mr. Horton, who's worked with school safety, and specifically Mr. Danny Dean,
Yeah.
I think would be instrumental as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that brings us to wrap up of today's workshop. So unless there's any, well, we do have, let's go down to look at the public hearing. 17.1, public hearing for the adoption of a new school board policy 04-49, school threat assessment teams. presented by Mr. Danny Dean, Specialist, Student Intervention Services and Safe Schools, and recommended by the superintendent for approval. And then that finally gets us to adjournment. Unless there's anything else, Superintendent, Mr. Attorney, or staff? All right, this workshop is adjourned.